Okay, everybody, we're live.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the February 6, 2025 meeting of the Policy and Personnel Committee. We have a few board members who are either ill or their family has illness and they won't be able to attend tonight. So the attendance will be a little lighter than normal if you're a regular watcher of these. But we'll go with what we have. It's Mr. Boyer. Welcome.
All right. Hello, everyone. Um, Start with policy, obviously. So I don't know if everyone is aware, but as far as districts that have adopted the policies for 2024 as they relate to Title IX, um, those policies basically, due to I guess it was a court hearing in Kentucky, are now null and void. Um, and the work that we did with our 2024 policies, they're now not able to be used anymore. Um, so really, I did put the link to the entire news release that Fox Rothschild had supplied. And I talked with the attorney that helped me with the 2024 policies. And Mr. Klein, I can go over with the committee what they recommend if there isn't any conversation about just what happened with the 2024 policy.
No, I think what happens, the law, so we're just going to be following probably our solicitor's advice. So why don't you share what they said, please?
Yeah,
Hold on a
they
second. Hold on.
About
Mrs.
what the
Spence, I
law.
see you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I'd like to know more clarity on what happened, what law are we talking about, and when did these changes take effect?
um sure I can open up the news
Yeah.
release for you if you want to see it. So, I mean, this is a pretty somewhat lengthy, but really, the Kentucky federal court determined that the rules are invalid and would no longer have legal effect against schools nationwide. So it was in an appeals likely to be considered, but really, when they did that, that then null and voided all of the Title IX 2024 regulation.
Okay.
Um,
So anything federal, like even though it's in another state, because it's a federal ruling, then it affects nationwide.
yeah, correct. That's the way I understand it. And in due to this, what our attorney that helped with the policy, the 224 policies, recommended that we nullify the 2024 policies and then revert back to our prior policies from 2020. Um, so that would be obviously a recommendation to the board. But I'm welcome to try to answer any questions about it. But I talked with her at length, and that's the recommendation that they're giving to any of the districts that they've worked with.
How many policies do we have that we have to change back?
So it would be 103.1, 103.2, 10. It's three total policies altogether, I believe. That's the conversation I had with her right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And we're just reverting back to what we were before the law that they just found.
Okay.
They just struck down back to what we had before that, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Klein, may I make a comment quickly?
Sure.
I think it's important, especially for any community members who may be watching this. I'm just going to ask and then answer my own questions because these were my questions. Um, a lot of this sounds, very complicated and somewhat scary. Like, well, what do you mean Title IX was struck down? That's not actually what it means. It's some of the interpretive languages and rules that were more administration focused, but the protections of Title IX are still in place, And really, it's just a matter of process. So one of the big changes for the process with the 2024 was what names you had to have and how many people there had to be that had certain names, such as investigator or decider or judge, etc. And it was basically from my I'll call it my elementary approach. It was just a more complicated version of the 2020 version, the 2020 regs. So we have at least one Title IX investigation. That is not unusual. One or two Title IX investigations going on in a district our size. Um, and I'm pleased to say that in terms of how we call things is one thing, like who's the investigator, et cetera. But in terms of process, anyone who makes a complaint, they're not going to feel much of a difference. Anyone who is accused is not going to feel that much of a difference because they both have protections, they both have processes, they both have appeals, they both have rights. It's just a matter of the way that the regulations came down. So I'm satisfied. I mean, this is the exact policy we had a few months ago, so I don't think it's that big of a difference. But the last set were very complicated, and so we're moving back to the less complicated version.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. And like you said, when the policies changed, there weren't a whole lot of changes. They weren't widespread changes throughout the
Correct.
document.
Correct.
So my recommendation, I would agree with you, Mr. Boyer. I think we should move it forward to the committee of the whole. And just with the caveat that we're going to revert back to what we had prior to the 2024 regulations that we just approved a few months ago. Mrs. Spence, are you okay with that? Okay, great. Anything else for that, Mr. Boyer?
No, hopefully nothing for a while with Title IX. The next policy is policy 216, student records. We have a recommendation with this policy. I will get this up for everyone. And just make it a little bigger.
Your computer's going slow there, Mr. Boyer.
Yeah, it's somehow not letting me click on this. Here we go. Sorry about that. Policy in itself, really, there's not really any wholesale changes to it at all, except we would like to recommend striking out place of birth. That does appear in two places on here, directory information, and then it also appears is under identifiable information. And I know Mr. Rodriguez wanted to speak to this a bit, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Klein.
No, that's fine, Mr. Rodriguez. I'm sorry.
Yep. Just want to make sure. So this is a change that was recommended to us by our legal counsel. And it is a minor change that makes sure that the information we share information with third-party providers. That's a matter of course, and we should do that because that allows some of our students to get some of the great software programs, etc. But this is information that we feel should stay with us and not be provided elsewhere. So it was a recommendation that I thought worthy of immediate consideration for your review.
I have no problem with it. I mean, I don't know why they would need place of birth with anything that would help the family or the child. They might use it to attempt to harm the family and the child. But so I think to protect our students, that's a prudent change. Mrs. Spence?
So is this a recommendation based on the recent migrant deportation? And does this go to the state Department of Education, and what happens when, I mean, I have a lot of questions and I know probably no one has an answer to this, but if I just want to put it out there for the record. So we're protecting the student's place of birth. Totally agree with that. But can we send this to the state, and can the state send this to the government, which potentially would be the federal government that's in the process of doing these deportations, and at the same time possibly eliminating the Board of Ed, but they would have students' information.
Mrs. Spence, all excellent questions. I'll do my best to answer them. The answer to your first question is yes. This is in response as we look at policy in with different lenses at different points in time. We make those recommendations and based on legal counsel, what our responsibility is based on a Supreme Court decision in 1984. We believe that the best thing to do is simply strike this from the record as it relates to personally identifiable information and third-party providers. So in terms of what information goes out from the school district, that would not happen without a subpoena. And that subpoena would be a judicial subpoena, not an administrative subpoena. So that is already within our realm of jurisdiction. As it relates to this, we just want to make sure that no other third-party providers is able to provide any information without our knowledge because we're sharing information with them. So that kind of ties that loose end, so to speak. Not that I believe that any of our partners would do that, but it doesn't give them the ability after the fact. To your second question, the state government already has a lot of this information in several different forms. So the information that they require of us is highly secure. In fact, they have a thing called a PA Secure ID for students to make sure that student information doesn't get out there because they're just as responsible for that information as us. But no, it doesn't stop the state from getting this information because they essentially already have it. They have it through our assessment system and other things. But it is not my understanding that that is any more of a risk than us having it because again, state governments would require a judicial court order or subpoena or warrant in order for that information to leave because they're subject to the same privacy laws as we are. They are not allowed to release information to anyone, even themselves, as it relates to students. And that now I give you all that information, which has been given to me. So I'm not an expert in this area. I'm giving you my best rendering of how it works at the state level. I hope that helps.
What about at the federal level? So this information goes to the state and the state sends it to the federal Department of Education, correct?
My understanding is that it only works by secure ID to make sure that all of our federal information can't be stolen at once. But that, I mean, what the rules are, I don't believe, I've never heard of that being talked about as an issue per se. So, I mean, I might have to ask that question at another time. I don't want to say if I don't know. My first thought is no, but I don't know.
Times are changing. I'm sure the Department of Education has this information already, right? And
The State
so,
Department does, yes.
yeah, so state, and then if state has it, then I'm sure the federal has it as well. So even though we're doing this to protect our students, at the end of the day, it may be for null if the federal government, which is doing the deportations, may already have it.
It is possible, Mrs. Spence.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So you're okay if we move this forward to the committee, the whole, Mrs. Spence?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Boyer, back to you.
All right. We don't have any personnel items this evening. The last is just an informational item related to the school districts of Montgomery County. There's a website that we've created I don't want to say we, MCIU has helped create this as related to, a recruitment consortium, and I can open up the link for you. Up here. Just trying to come up. This. So, what this really is it's all the school districts in Montgomery County, and really it's advertised as a hiring location to advertise positions. It also gives information on each district, and you can see by clicking on the dots on here, ours will come up. You can click on employment opportunities. It would take us to our employment opportunities page. And then they're adding different things to this. It's not a completely finished product. And then it will also accompany a flip book where, Pottstown School District is advertised. There's also information about the school district, some of our needs, some of our highlights, some of the things that we do, and some pictures. It's pretty cool. It's something that is live now, but they're going to enhance it a bit more as well. So I just wanted to share that with the committee. I don't know if anyone has any questions about it.
Right down. Thank you for sharing, though.
Yeah, and then that's all I have tonight.
Okay. Mr. Yashinsky, do we have any public comment?
Not at this time, Mr. Klein. Oh, we do have one.
Okay. Ms. Jackson, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for your patience. My hands are a little frozen over here. Mercedes Jackson, East High Street, Pottstown, PA. I just had a couple things that I wanted to share that parents in the community brought up. If there's some way for children who are attending the sporting events, if they can be escorted by an adult. I understand their parents may not be able to be there due to work or whatever the case, but some adult, because parents that are there to watch their children play a sporting event shouldn't have to be worried about children who are just there to hang out and being attacked by watching their child. That's not ever okay. And when I brought that up and talking to other parents, I guess Pottsgrove does something like that, that they have to be with an adult. I don't know how effective it is or if it's, being followed. But I just want to bring that up. And then I do know that some parents were like, well, what about the kids who are doing what they're supposed to do? And then it can be hard for those parents to be there for them or an adult. And I said, well, then maybe how about the ones who, if there's one fight they got into, and it doesn't matter if it was in spring, fall, that child who did not make a good decision needs to have some, like their name needs to come up or something. They need to have their school ID, and then that child needs to come with an adult, and that adult needs to stay there, not drop them off like it's some daycare. That's not okay. And I'm talking to, I don't like bad anything. I don't care what your title is. I don't like bad parents who just have children and expect everybody else to raise them. Parents who are there to support their children in a sport or anything else, playing an instrument or choir. We are not your baby daddy. We're not your baby mama. So come there with your kids and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. And if they're not, then they shouldn't be there. That's embarrassing for other schools who are there as well. And then the sad thing about it is these kids who are fighting, they're fighting with their own teammates. They're fighting with their own peers. That's embarrassing and it's humiliating. Also,
You have about 15 more seconds, Mrs. Jackson, Miss Jackson.
okay, thank you. And the last thing I wanted to bring up too, is there a way that the community and parents can also have a vote and say for like teachers of the year? I think that'd be cool because there are some amazing teachers that my kids have had, and I think they should be rewarded as well. And these virtual days, I know some people don't want to be stuck in a house with their wayward children, but I will tell you, me being in the house and listening to some of these teachers, how they're teaching my child, I'll be learning stuff as well. So I just think they all should be recognized because there are a lot of diamonds in the rough. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else, Mr. Yashinsky?
Not at this time, Mr. Klein.
Okay, so we're moving the two things forward to the committee of the whole, Mr. Boyer. Our next meeting will be March the 6th at 6:30 p.m. Thank you all for attending. Next, we go to our curriculum meeting. Have a good night.
See ya.
Good evening and welcome to the February 6th curriculum committee meeting. The normal chair is indisposed this evening. I'm going to be filling in for her. I thank Mr. Oxenford and Dr. White Springfield for doing the majority of the work tonight. So Mr. Oxenford, oh no, I'm sorry. We'll go with public comment first, and then it's Dr. White Springfield first on the agenda. Any public comment, Mr. Yashinsky?
Not at this time, Mr. Klein.
Dr. White Springfield, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. How's everyone doing?
Well,
Good. Do I have share rights? All right, I'm going to share my screen. I just want to give a quick mental health update on the Department of Student Services. Just got to move some stuff around so I can actually see. Oh, I don't know why my sharing just paused or why I can no longer see anything on my screen.
We can see it here. We can see the slides on the side and Student Services Mental Health Update 0206.
Right, but it's really tiny on mine, so I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare. Oh, did the same thing. Okay, thank you. I don't know why I'm having technical difficulties today.
I mean, it's not the smoothest thing in the world, but do you want me to try to share and see if it cooperates for me and you just tell me when to click through?
Let's try one more time.
Okay.
we can see that.
I know, I just can't see it though.
Okay, that makes it tough.
Are you able to adjust the little divider between the present screen and the tiles? Like to drag it over to your side?
No, what I'm saying is it's just a small window for me for some reason. So Ryan, you may have to share.
Maybe your computer has what the board members that aren't here tonight have, Dr. White. Springfield.
Are you
Can put it in present mode, please.
yeah, okay.
All right. So I just want to do a quick mental health update. Ryan, you can switch. here we have over the past couple of years grown our mental health supports. And again, I thank the board for supporting us in that area. We were able to increase our district supports, but we also have been able to work with some grants with the Lincoln Center to be able to increase supports in some other areas. I'm not going to go through all of these. This information is up here, though, if you want to take a look at it. Unique to our school, we do a lot of creative art and movement therapy for our students, especially those who just doesn't like talking to counselors. But we do have a list of all of our counselors there in the event you guys wanted that information. Or you can move to the next one. We also have our school psychs, our registered behavior technicians, which are not new to the district, but we used to contract those services. We now have those for our own. And creative health is now our school-based outpatient services throughout all of our building. We no longer use Malvern Behavioral Health. This is our third year going into a grant with Eastern University. We now have two different grants. One is our mental health services professional grant, which is a 5-year grant. We do have a site supervisor who is a master's level counselor, and along with 4 interns that we utilize throughout our district. This is where they're currently at now, but they also had elementary hours in the first semester. And along with that, we have our VIP grant, which is the Violence Intervention and Prevention Grant. That's a 3-year grant through the Lincoln Center, which allows us to have a clinical licensed social worker as a site supervisor who provides services to our students, along with their master level interns that work with our counselors and our social workers to support our students. So we're trying to get as much support in there as we can, make sure we're reaching all students.
And critiquing.
We do have a list of multiple different services and supports that we do. A lot of them are ongoing supports. Some of them are new. Being able to meet the entire child and not just the mental health need, but also the academic need, behavioral need. And each time I feel like I go to a training, or one of the counselors or someone goes to the training, we're able to bring more support and services back. So I am super proud of our team for being able to find anything to be able to support our students. So this year we have launched a new system called August Schools, and that is the way that we're able to track all the different encounters, which are interactions with students within the system. But it also did you go? Oh, yes, stay there. It doesn't allow us to allows us to collaborate, share notes. It allows us to be able to work as a team on a specific student, so that that information can then be moved on to the next grade level, so we can have a better continuity of services. So out of our 3,127 students within the district, almost 1,400 of them have been seen by a school counselor in some shape or capacity. Some of these students may be out of district. There could be multiple reasons why the other part of the 1,700 have not been encountered. But this is so far in the first half of this school year. So if we break those encounters down by grade, students by grade level, this is what the 3,127 students look like by grade level. And if you're looking at the chart on my right, I don't know what it is for you, but those are all of the encounters that I've had. 6,851 times a student has seen a counselor. That could be one student could have multiple encounters, but this is the number of encounters, and this is how we've broken the encounters down by grade level. So if you see in that middle school area, we have some higher numbers, as well as second grade has some high numbers as well. So these are encounter types. It's hard to read the graph, so I did highlight some areas of where students are seeing counselors or social workers on a higher numbers. So there have been 6,456 of them have been based on counseling, where the rest have been based on social work. Some of our higher numbers are social emotional visits, whether those visits are scheduled. They could be preventative meetings. They also could be post meetings just to be able to support students. We have done a huge job with doing check-ins and check-outs within our buildings to support students. The high school I know has that attached to a reward system, and not that if they don't check in and check it out and get points, they're not getting consequences, but the goal is for them to earn a reward, and really use that preventional services that we offer students. Some other ones are scheduled visits, whether it be through their IEP or just as a safety plan. You also see that there also is guardian consults and faculty consults as it relates to students. So we're trying to figure out the best way to manage our time and distribute our time with students, and this system allows us to do that. These are student encounters by type. I know it's hard to see, but Ryan, if you can click that students encounter by type for me at the top. Hopefully it opens. Let's cross our fingers. Oh, you don't have access, Ryan. You can go back. That's fine. And what this does is basically it breaks down what type of encounters that the students are having. So if you see that large one that says 1724, that looks like it could be the social emotional visit. So this is just a different way of being able to see how students are being categorized in the reasoning why they're being seen by a counselor. And at the bottom, some of the things would be whether it's a threat assessment, a counseling assessment, it could be a student consult, it could be possible child abuse report, an intake, an observation. So there's so many different reasons why a student would see a counselor, and this will break it down, but you could have access to this if need be. You're also not going to be able to see this, but this is the encounters by issue. And I'll just read a few of those issues because I know this is hard to see. So our largest issue encounter is obviously the emotional anxiety. It could be home. We have academic reasons on here. We also have some of the just emotional reasons. The goal of this program really was to identify how are we best serving students, identify the gaps so that we can put interventions in so that we're not missing areas of that student. These are encounters by disposition. So the question is, once you've seen the counselor, what happens? So the bulk of our students return to scheduled activities, but there are times that we do follow-ups with students. They're released to school staff. Maybe they're sent home or released with a parent. They also have times where there has been a time where we had to release a student to the EMS. So we really want to be able to keep track on how are we supporting students after the intervention. This is also encounters by learning impact. So based on the need and or reasoning why a student came in to see the counselor, we want to know what that learning impact was. So for a chunk of it, there's no learning impact. Some, they're missing class, their inability to complete work, and then you're looking at executive functioning and then a behavioral disturbance. And this is how that is broken down. Another program that we have that you guys are all aware of is our Gear Up program. We have 2 cohorts going on, which are both in the high school, and they're doing well. I'm not going to go through all of this data because it can be available to you if you need to. But our Gear Up program focuses on academic support and enrichment, college and career readiness, family engagement, and professional development. They have been working with our students and our staff within our buildings now for some time. Just looking at some highlights of last year, where the entire year we had 700 students, teachers, and families receive services. We're only midway through the year, and we've already had 509 9th and 10th graders being able to be part of that Gear Up cohort. So you can obviously see that they have integrated within our systems. And our student, I tell this quick story. I was at the Dollar General the other day. We just had a meeting with Gear Up, and they wanted to know, how is the program? Is it successful? And when I was in the Dollar General, I was talking to a parent, and she was telling me that her 9th grader is really slipping academically. She was like, but do you ever heard of this program called Gear Up? Because she keeps talking to me about Gear Up, and they helped her friend with this, that, and the third. And I was like, oh, really? Tell me more. So when parents are coming to me to explain Gear Up, that means that they're successful within our buildings. This is a list of some additional resources and supports that we collaborate with or we have. We are family resource, our family services. We social worker, when she calls parents, she calls them family services because some people don't like that terminology, social worker. But our school social worker, along with our residency coordinator, work very diligently with some of our families to be able to provide services. And we do have these services listed on our webpage, but this is just a reminder of some of the supports that we do offer. And there's some more. And lastly, our attendance efforts. I do at some point want to sit and talk a little bit about attendance. I didn't want to go deep into it because I didn't know what time was looking like. But we have done so much work this year in supporting students and getting their families to get their students to school. Our home and school visitors are out all the time in the neighborhood. They have the SATE, which is a student attendance improvement plan. We've had 856 of those done so far this year with 365 home visits so far, and it's only halfway through the school year. So I just want you guys to know that they're working diligently. I also like when parents let me know, like, hey, I haven't heard from your home and school visitor, or your home and school visitor keeps calling me, tell him to stop. So all the feedback is good, but I think as a full department, our goal really is just to figure out how to best support students. And I think we try to think outside the box to make sure we get that completed.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
The encounters, is
Yeah.
that all our counselors, the Eastern University people and the Pottstown School District people? And
So the encounters are all of our district staff. There are a few interns that do full counseling. So if they're master level interns that do counseling, they're able to put an encounter in. But the bulk of those are from our district counselors and our social workers.
wonderful. Now, I don't want to call it a requirement. I'm putting my high school administrator hat on, have to dust it off first. Are we hopeful that in the high school, the counselor sees every student at least once a year?
Yeah, so that's actually part of the plan. That's why the way that we have our counselors broken down by different grade levels, they are actually required to see students at least one time within the school year. What we now do is we have our counselors also go in and teach social emotional learning lessons to classrooms. So they go into full classrooms and teach lessons on a rotative basis. So even along with their individual, they will also get that large group instruction. We also have groups running in our buildings as well. So on a tier 1 level, they would be getting the large classroom instruction. That tier 2 level, they would be getting maybe smaller groups, with the tier 3 being individual outside of that required face-to-face that they have to have with their counselor.
Wonderful. And finally, you said you put a lot of effort into the attendance. Are you seeing positive results?
We are seeing positive results. I actually shared with Mr. Rodriguez the other day some data. And I think a little bit is, for some reason, my home and school visitors are always like, did we meet that goal? Did we meet that goal? Did that goal happen? They're always shook about it. But I think with our MTSS process and being able to, in their core meetings, really focusing on students and the effects of their attendance, and having that procedure with the SATEs and home and school visitors going out, I think that has made a vast improvement in what we were doing prior to them being a part of our team.
Wonderful. Great report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Great. Thank you, guys.
Take care. If you want to start sharing your screen again, Mr. Oxenford.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. We've spent a good deal of time on the comprehensive plan at different meetings, but I wanted to give everyone an update as to where we stand with our new PDE submission that we're required. So it's important that members of the board, as well as the public, know a little bit of the details that are required and the timelines. And even though I think there are probably people who say, like, didn't we just finish the last comprehensive plan? How is it possible that we're writing a new plan? So let me talk you through this. I'm going to answer the following questions. Why are we doing this, like this submission now? Where did the data come from? What are the other plans? and what are the timelines that we should be aware of. So why are we doing this? PDE, they require that we submit a new comprehensive plan every 3 years. But it essentially, in this cycle, is they're trying to make sure that they have awareness that we have awareness of our current student performance data. When we did the previous comprehensive plan just a couple years ago, that data was a little old. I mean, I remember seeing data on there that was as far back as 2018. And so we want to make sure that when we do any type of planning and we're looking at student performance, it's as current as it can possibly be, so that you're speaking about, what are the issues that we're paying attention to. It's important that we continue to use this to recognize the strength and weaknesses of the outcomes that are actually measured, like the things that are reportable. And we have initiatives that are well into implementation, and some of them are still in the early stages. So it's good for us to capture this and provide the state an update. And I think you've heard me say this a couple of times. We have two plans. There's the front-facing plan, which is that beautiful document, all the pictures, the graphs that look a lot more like Dr. White's presentations versus my presentations. But then there's ours, and then that's what this is, right? This is the submission that is pretty bland, and we work through they call it the FCR PP portal. Well, it's the portal, but and I'll talk about this in a bit. So the data that is pulled for our comprehensive plan submission to PDE comes from two primary sources. So one is the PA Future Ready Index. This is public. Like, this comes out, it's got metrics all over the place. And if you look carefully, you can see some of the historical data, and we pay attention to that, but we use this information. But when I talk about old data, like, for example, there are things like the attendance rate. Like, we obviously focus a lot of attention on trying to make sure our attendance is great. And that's one of the metrics that are captured, but the attendance is always a full year delayed. So the number that comes out in the fall, so just this past fall, was not from last school year, it was from the school year before. So some of the student performance measures are in there, but the attendance is extremely delayed by a full year. So we also have, we're a couple years into using Linkit as our data warehouse, and they are able to produce navigator reports, which really give us some good insight into how our students are doing. And it breaks it down in ways that are much more friendly than just looking at volumes and volumes of spreadsheets. And although we have a dashboard inside of Linkit that allows us to get to levels of information and look at student performance, both on the PSSAs, but then also on our benchmarks, they will run on our behalf. We haven't figured out how to do it, but that's one of the deals with them. They run navigator reports, which will show cohorts over time, which is something we pay attention to. And one thing that I think we've gotten much better at doing whenever we are citing the data, and something you'll see as you preview the comprehensive plan, anytime we find a data point that is mentioned, we identify the source of that data. And much of it comes from the Linkit Navigator reports, which are reporting on the PSSA data, because it's so in depth. It allows us to get much more details, and allows us to know later on when we look back, where did this number actually come from? And I think I've seen that in previous comprehensive plans where we see a metric, but we don't even know necessarily what year it was from or what was the source from which it was pulled. So we've been much more disciplined about making sure to cite our source whenever we identified any type of data point that went into the plan. And then there are other plans. So on top of the comprehensive plan, which is a pretty extensive set of questions that we're required to answer through the structure that the state puts out, there are additional plans, which is one has to do with the academic standards. It's a way that they check to make sure that our curriculum is in alignment with the state requirements, and we're fulfilling all those obligations. And if we have any holes, plugging those holes, and I'm proud to say we don't have the holes. We have a gifted education plan, which is completed by Mr. Jeffrey, where he has a series of questions he needs to answer. Student service assurances is completed by Dr. White, and then the induction plan and professional development plan are completed by myself. And this is what you have to receive to essentially have an approved program to not only offer induction to new teachers and all the stipulations and requirements that come along with that, but then do you meet the requirements necessary to provide Act 48 hours through your professional development? So both very important plans that are submitted, and you have to detail what is your process. And then the state takes a look at that and they either reject it and say we need, a couple more levels of information, or it's accepted and you're good to carry this on out. So there's timelines associated with this, and they come up pretty quickly for a couple of reasons. So one, we've sent this out to a committee, allowed, an opportunity for them to provide some feedback. I'm presenting tonight, which is usually how we kick off the public facing document, because that's part of the requirement. So tomorrow, actually tonight, but like it's officially tomorrow, it's going to be the start of the required 28-day public facing display, which means the public is allowed to inspect it and provide comments on it. And we have that posted for 28 days, and we'll probably leave it up longer than that, because based on the timeline, it cannot go for board approval until it's had the 28 days of public display. So the next meeting that is essential for the board to affirm the meeting or to affirm the comprehensive plan would be on March 20th. So the upcoming board meeting, which is 2 weeks from today, is not enough time for the 28 days for it to be public facing. And we felt, obviously this is the meeting where we essentially provide formal notice to the public and obviously the committee that the documents are going to be live. And then the very next day, or about the very next day, we have to submit that to PDE, and all those plans are submitted, a little bit ahead of time, but you can see they're obviously ready to go. But now we're just fulfilling the timelines, and we have to back plan from that. So on our website, if you want to access the document, we've done some screenshots to make it a little bit easier to navigate. On our home website, our district comprehensive plan. As you click on that, here are the plans that were just listed in one of the previous slides, which is not only the comprehensive plan. You'll see there's the comprehensive plan full report, which is the original front-facing one, and then all the other plans that are part of the required submission. And I'll tell you now that there's a lot of information in there, and this is the honest truth. You've heard me say this before. It's not a friendly document. When you look at it, I submit everything through the portal. I'm one of the few people who has access to the portal where you have to submit the data, and it goes in layers and you can't really work ahead and things are pre-populated. But when you go to print it to have someone else be able to view it, which is part of the public display, it doesn't really print it the way that I see it on the screen. So I see it and it's a little bit more composed and it has layers, but it prints it out in like a 30-page document, and sometimes it runs over and this box doesn't seem to line up with this box, but it's just the way that when you print the full report, it's what's generated. So those are all on there. So all those plans will be available. They're live and ready to go. And obviously people can reach out with questions, and I'll do my best to answer, where the data came from or what was the source. And then the last piece is just mentioning that co-curricular updates the field information. I just want to make sure we had that in print just so that we could call that out. But the field information on facility will be addressed at the next facility and finance meeting, which is a week from today. So let me stop the share, open it up for you, Mr. Klein, to entertain anything that you may have questions about or any points we may have missed.
Right. So the not the only salient point, of course, but the one that we want to share with the public tonight is that they go to the home website, our district comprehensive plan is where they can view it for the next 28 days.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I don't see any questions from the board. So I guess we'll ask Mr. Yashinsky if there's any from the public.
It's actually Mr. Santiago. Mr. Yashinsky's
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure you knew. So
He's not up on my screen. So
no,
while
he's
we're
not.
waiting for Mr. Santiago, Mr. Hilton has his hand up. Mr. Hilton?
I think that's Mrs. Jackson, a member of the public.
Okay, I'm not doing so well here.
It's okay, Mr. Klein. It just shows that you're human, buddy. So Mercedes Jackson back at it. So I just had a one question and I just wanted to make two announcements if I could. So um in regards to Mr. Klein's question, it made me think of another question that I been hearing from the public. Is there a way for the public to be able to contact board members? And if so, what is that process? Like, is there, because I know that they were saying they pulled it up and it showed like a picture of all the board members and their names, but like, are there emails listed if they feel more comfortable with talking to one directly? Is that a such thing? That is the public question. In regards to, I wanted to piggyback a little on when I was saying about teachers virtually. I wanted to be clear on that teacher's name because I know there's going to have people like, oh, I worked at the high school, and they're going to be like, yay, yay. But I want to be clear on that teacher, which is Mrs. Johnson, aka Mrs. Richardson. Every time she's teaching, it's just a calm about her. And I mean, it makes me want to be a student. Okay. Her demeanor, the way she teaches, it's definitely a fresh breath of air in the way to learn and reach these kids. And Pottstown children need that. Um, I also wanted to share about Franklin's, they had an activity night on January 29th. I went up there to support and also engage with other parents, and it was very nice. And again, as usual, the principal and the teacher actually who does the teacher federation, she did one of the activities in her room. I'm in there doing push-ups with these little kids. Lord knows I felt it the next day, but it was a very nice event. It was a cool night, and it was a nice gathering. So I want to just thank them for always welcoming me with smiling faces and let me come there and put my hands to the plow and help out. Um, and last, FAC's have an event on February 8th, Pajama Jammy Jam. So, of course, please come, families, have a good time. And what the Jammy Jam is, we're just going to be doing different dances, line dances. If you know one, just teach one, and we can all just jam out together. And make sure, and I shouldn't have to say this, but I feel like I do, wear appropriate pajamas. Okay, don't wear, I know it's February, month of February, but wear appropriate pajamas to this school event at the Pottstown High School, February 8th, 5:30 to 7:30, and come prepared to have some fun and make some lasting connections. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. I believe I don't ever look to see how to contact board members. I believe, Mr. Rodriguez, go ahead.
Yes, we typically purposefully don't respond immediately to questions, but I was gonna say if you don't mind, first of all, I have a question for a member of the public, and that would be Mrs. Jackson, for which I'm very excited about the events that FAC does. They reformulated themselves a couple years ago, and they've been having some really great successes with reaching out to parents. I hear lots of great feedback on it. What happens if, oh, I don't know, it snows Saturday night? How will members of the public be able to know whether the event is on or not?
I will have an FAC member post it at the Pottstown Families Let's Talk website. And then I'll also maybe ask Mr. Armato to post on the Pottstown, the school district one. That way we can cover more areas.
Sounds great. Just as a reminder to everyone who may be here, listening, aware, members of the public, let's see. Can you guys see the Pottstown School District website?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, very good. So I believe that this may have been mentioned, but if you go to our Pottstown School District website, you'll see board and then Board of Education. If you click on Board of Education, it comes right back here. And then this is the Board of Education, perhaps the picture that was being referred to, along with all the offices, terms, expiration of terms, student board reps, and emails. But wait, there's more. If you go to board and public participation in board committee meetings, you'll have this nice little instructional video done by yours truly, and you can submit a written commentary that will automatically go. It basically gets recorded. In that case, you're not limited by 3 minutes. You can make sure that you don't miss anybody or et cetera, et cetera. So we set this up. It is used, honestly, not as often as I would like, but it is there and available when a question like this came up before. So I hope that is helpful, and I'm appreciative of the question.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Santiago, is there anyone else this evening?
Not at this time, Mr. Klein.
Thank you. Mr. Oxenford, we're concluded the agenda for the curriculum committee, correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. The next committee meeting is March the 6th, 2025, at the conclusion of the Policy and Personnel Committee. Thank you all for attending tonight, and I hope everyone that's not here gets well quickly. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.